between the irrigator and the Commonwealth. So again, there's an integration with what's happening there and what we're doing with environmental water.
Thanks, Senator Bushby.
Thank you. Senator Waters.
Thank you. I've got some extremely specific questions about the Ramsar site of the Gippsland Lakes. I'm hoping that I've got someone here that can assist with that. Have we got the right people here at the table?
We can make a start, Senator.
Okay.
It depends how specific they are.
Well, I've been made aware that there's a Victorian Government Auditor General's report dated the 14th of September this year about the management of Victoria's Ramsar listed wetlands. Are you folk aware of that Auditor General's report?
Yes, Senator.
Okay.
We're aware of it. I have read it.
Okay, great. So you would understand then that the report talks about the structure of who does what, and that Parks Vic is the primary manager, that they apparently report to the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning, DELWP perhaps is their acronym, and that DELWP then reviews the condition of the site and then reports to the Commonwealth. I think I've got the chain of command correct. Is it correct that DELWP haven't reported any change in the ecological character of those wetlands since the sites were first inscribed and listed in 1982?
My recollection, Senator, is that the Gippsland Lakes is currently under an Article 3.2 category. So Article 3.2 of the Ramsar Convention refers to a real or potential change in ecological character of the site, human generated, that is, as you'd expect in natural sites, there are natural changes.
Yes.
As you go through a set of dynamic equilibriums. The Convention isn't interested in those.
Yep.
It's interested in human-induced changes. And the Gippsland Lakes has been subject to a 3.2 nomination. It's been subject to a number of reviews by the Victorian Department. We've been involved in those. It's not yet resolved. You would understand, without going into too much detail, because I'm sure you've got more questions, it's a particularly challenging Ramsar site amongst a number of particularly challenging Ramsar sites. It's a port. It is open to the ocean and maintained in that way. It's got heavy recreational use, heavy commercial use, heavy tourism use. It's nestled in a catchment that is having an ever-expanding impact of residential development and human occupation. So it's certainly a very challenging Ramsar site for the Victorians. They are acutely aware of concerns about changes in ecological character, and we are working with them to monitor those and at some stage form a view whether there has been or is likely to be and what the response to that will be.
Okay, thank you. Just in relation to the multiple uses of the area, you mentioned ports. I understand, and I don't have the details in my head or before me, unfortunately, but hopefully you'll understand my drift. I understand there was a dredging application made that went through the usual approval pathway.
That's correct.
And my understanding is that the assessment footprint was quite constrained and only looked at effectively the very localised impacts rather than considering the broader impacts on the lake. That seems very odd to me and very wrong. Have I got the wrong end of the stick, or if not, is there some intention to revisit that approval decision and to factor in the broader impacts on the lake?
I can only help you in a limited way here, Senator, because I don't administer the EPBC Act, and my recollection is that the dredging, which is a routine process, was subject to a decision under that piece of legislation. I understand it was approved with conditions. I couldn't provide you with any commentary on the extent of the area looked at. I do know that the decision was challenged by a local group and reviewed and confirmed.
Okay.
But if you wanted more detail, I'd have to refer you to somewhere else.
Yeah, thank you.
I think we should take this on notice, but what I would say is it's not uncommon for, we'll get a referral for a certain area of impact which is the direct impacts of whatever's being proposed. The assessment then looks at the direct impacts in that space, but also
All adverse impacts, yes.
the surrounding area. So, but I'd like to come back and confirm.
Yeah, if you could,
what
thank
that
you. And
scope
pardon
is.
me, it's not an area I have a lot of detail about, so I'll look forward to your information there.
Great, thank you.
Can I ask about that Article 3.2 process? Who initiates that? Or rather, who initiated that particular process? Was it the Victorian government?
Yeah,
was it
it
the
was-
feds? Was it a community group? Was it the
that's
convention secretariat?
In terms of the formal process, it's the Victorian government through its
Okay.
agencies. So, again, without going into excessive detail, the principal responsibilities around management and what flows from the management of the Ramsar site sit with the management agency and the government of the management agency. So that is in
And is
nearly
that Parks
all
Vic or is
cases.
that Delwood?
Well, it's a combination of both of those. So Parks
right.
Victoria manages most of the site, but it sits within a Victorian government framework with the
Right.
broader department, who also have broader Ramsar responsibilities themselves.
Okay, so the short version of that is the Victorian government alerted the Ramsar Secretariat and this Article 3.2 process began, is that
Well,
right?
they work through the Australian government because it's
Oh,
the,
right, of course, the
Australian,
state party made the
it's the state
representation.
party, that's right.
Okay, when did that happen? How long's that been on foot for?
So, I would have to take that on notice because I don't have the exact date.
Okay.
on
Is it a
recall.
matter of months or years?
Yeah, years.
Years,
It's been,
all right.
this has been going on for a long
Okay.
time, Senator.
Is that a possible explanation or not for why Delwip hasn't apparently reported any change in the ecological character of the wetlands
Well,
through the normal pathway?
My understanding of the situation there, as in a number of other Ramsar sites under an Article 3.2, is that there's a reasonably long and formal process of investigation that involves community consultation, and they do take time. And the Gippsland Lakes is complex. The management of it is complex and controversial. So, my understanding of it, Senator, is that that's probably the main reason for the time taken.
Okay, and for the lack of specific update on ecological character?
The Victorian government does keep us informed of the work that it's undertaken. So, for example, they provided us, certainly within the time that I've been the Commonwealth Environmental Water Holder and the Administrative Authority, they provided us with an update, for example, on some of the work they had been doing, looking at the difference between changes in ecological character driven from within the lakes
Yes.
versus potential changes driven from the catchment. So you've got a change in the freshwater regime flowing into the lake as well as all the changes within the lake.
Yeah.
So they keep us in the loop. They're
Okay.
very, I think they're very professional like that. And I've been out to look at the lakes with the Victorian government agencies and talked to both the government agencies and various community groups involved in the Gippsland Lakes.
Okay. So is the Auditor General's report not correct then when it says that there haven't been those formal reports from either Parks Vic or Delwood?
No, the Auditor General's report would be correct. I think the point I'm trying to make is that there's constant communication between us and the Victorian government, so they're not, in a sense, keeping the administrative authority or the Australian government in the dark. They are keeping us informed of where they're up to in their investigations and likely timeframes. We've, as I said, we've done an initial review of the Auditor General's report, the Victorian Auditor's report, and we'll be meeting as soon as we can with the Victorian agencies involved to work our way through that.
Okay. Well, perhaps would you be able to table your initial report into the Auditor General's report?
We won't be doing a formal response, but
Or could you provide me with your assessment of it to date?
we haven't done an assessment yet.
Oh, well,
but
you said you'd done an initial scan
initial
or
review.
something. Are you able to provide that?
That's the basis for the conversation that we'd undertake with the Victorian government. Perhaps it might be more productive to provide you with something after we've met with the Victorian government.
Are you able to do both?
Yes?
Okay, thanks very much for that. Look, I might leave it at that because it seems that there's this, overarching 3.2 process that perhaps has superseded what might normally happen. So I think I need a bit more information to understand.
Happy to take
You know,
questions
what's
on
actually
notice,
going on.
Senator.
Yes. So perhaps I'll just have one final question. So have Parks Vic and the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning been reporting to the federal government, whether that's yourself or whether that would be the department, I'm not sure, in the normal course of
Yes.
what you would expect?
Yes, that's right, Senator. It would be, because it's a RAMSA and because it's an Article 3.2, the relationship is with us as the administrative authority of the convention. My colleagues dealt with a specific development proposal under
Yes,
EPBC.
the dredging, okay.
So yes, there's been contact. They, for example, sponsored our inspection of the site, and there's been regular contact, which we will, we'll expand following the Victorian Auditor's report.
Okay. Can I just ask one final issue? And since we're on RAMSA, Morton